Slash his throat! Every fucking Republican! Bring it on!
The clips you just witnessed are simply the tip of the spear of the destructiveness of leftism, the ideology, and those who are unfortunately infected by it. Indeed, this is not all leftists, but it's a good sum that happen to interact with the culture in ways that are, of course, I should say, less than desirable. So the question before us today is, why is leftism destructive? It's more of a statement and a question at the same time, as you see in the title of this video. And I think I've kind of gotten to the bottom of it. Leftism as an ideology, in order to speak intelligently about this, we have to understand what leftism is. Leftism is merely an umbrella term for a wide range of ideologies that encompass and describe certain ideas, such as communitarianism, which describes the idea of the common good, such as a class-based or a worker-based outlook on life, which is one of the reasons why on the left you'll see a lot of appeals to the working class or the labor movement. You'll see the AFL-CIO, all these labor movements involved in the left because that's a part of their ideology. And fundamentally, you'll also see an increased focus on egalitarianism, or this idea of utopianism. Egalitarianism is merely a fancy word for utopianism, this grand vision of the future in society that is typically not obtainable, but it is attempted to be obtainable through this sort of egalitarian idea. Now you have these three things coming together, which I think formulate basic normal leftism. I say normal leftism to just differentiate it from woke leftism. Then you have woke leftism. Woke leftism is essentially all of these ideas, but there is also a greater emphasis on intersectional oppression and seeing the world not through the lens of the worker, not through the lens of egalitarianism, but through the lens of subjective experience as interpreted through intersectional oppression. So let me give you some very workable real-world examples here. Normal leftism would say to you that the working class is important. That's a very basic statement that they would say to you. Not to say that that's a strictly leftist statement, but they put an eager emphasis on the collective of the working class, whereas the right tends to put more emphasis on the individual in most cases. Woke leftism would say to you, the black working class, or the non-cis working class, or the gay working class, or the disabled working class are important, and they would whittle it down from there. One has a basis in the collective as a whole, the other puts the collective at the forefront, but defines it and specifies it by appealing to personal identity and so on and so forth, to subjective experience. And that is one of the reasons why we see leftism as a destructive philosophy. Because leftism begins with premises, with ideas that are just absolutely false when you look at reality. The idea, again, of communitarianism, of the common good being put over the individual, is a destructive idea that does not understand how society works. Society only works by understanding that people interact individually, interpersonally, and they can only do so under particular circumstances that are typically voluntary and peaceful. You don't have much social interaction when a war happens, for example. You don't have much social interaction when a riot happens, for example. You only have social interaction when conditions are relatively peaceful, and those interactions happen between individuals, and those individuals share their values in those interactions. This could be as simple as you watching this video, or you going to a store and buying something from the store clerk, or whatever the interaction is. You would typically exchange both values and resources during these interactions, but you can only understand values on an individual level. The moment you make values collective, or you attribute them to a group, you no longer have a sound basis for values, because in reality, these abstract groups are not measurable. I can account for Christian Watson. I can account for you, my dear viewer, watching me take on this philosophical rant. I can't account for all black people, all gay people. I can't account for that because human experience is so differentiated and it's so particular. Woke leftism kind of understands this and tries to solve for it by saying that subjective experience is important. But here you get the next problem. The next problem is that subjective experience looks too much on the inside, looks too inward, and ignores objective truth and norms about the world. For example, men cannot become women. This is an objective truth, a norm about the world, that gender ideology and the ideologies behind that, which I won't get into in this video, but maybe in future videos, and I have talked about it in past videos, they just deny that, and they deny that there can be an objective reality because everyone exists and experiences life through their own biases. This is essentially the idea that comes from a lot of thinkers, that is translated from a lot of thinkers, people like, for example, Friedrich Nietzsche, the famous philosopher who influenced a lot of the ideas that we now see overtaking normal leftism and translating it into woke leftism. He said that man cannot make a judgment about life because he's living, and therefore he's biased. This kind of thinking is exactly the kind of thing we see on display here with woke leftism. So if you can't establish any objective truths about the world, then all of the ideas I mentioned, the common good, communitarianism, egalitarianism, they can be effectuated through means that are alien to reality. If I've established that society requires individuals to peaceably operate, we have to have a basis for that peaceable operation. Well, the American founders understood that Americans are social creatures. We are social creatures with the ability to reason, and our reason differentiates us from every single other animal, because we're animals, in this world, and allows us to build civilizations, allows us to go ahead and build trade routes, allows us to build rockets and cars, and all these wonderful things that are marvels of human creativity come from the fact that we have reason and we are fundamentally individuals. And from the fact that we have a reason and we're individuals arises the need for society, because man alone against the wilderness is not a very strong force, but man in a group against the wilderness is a strong force, but he does not sacrifice himself to the group. He enriches the group by being himself. This is the fundamental basis of the American experiment, rooted in the ideas of natural law. And the ideas of natural law presuppose objective truth. They presuppose the resoluteness of reality. They presuppose things that cannot be accounted for with contemporary leftism, whether it be normal leftism coming out of the progressive era, or whether it be leftism today, the woke stuff that we see overrunning our culture, our institutions, and our universities. The true reason why leftism is so destructive, and the true reason that you can justify every single thing that I just showed you under a leftist paradigm, is because the emphasis is removed from reason, the emphasis is removed from interpersonal interaction, the emphasis is removed from universal law, and it is put squarely in the hands of the subjective, supramoral, collective, identity-based person. It is put solely in the hands of the intersectional identity. It is put solely in the hands of those who can amass power and inflict their vision of what it means to be a human being, or what it means to be X, Y, and Z upon you and me. It's no longer about foundations. Our entire world presupposes foundations. Our entire existence presupposes there are certain things that are inescapable. How we speak, how we think, presuppose certain truths that when you get down to it are non-negotiable. But under the leftist frame, everything's negotiable because there is this sense of society being more prominent than some of the other things that I have mentioned. The reason why leftism is destructive is because it removes the necessary basis for moral foundations, and it also removes the necessary foundations for interpersonal interaction that are incumbent upon the ideas that built America, really the ideas that have also enriched the West. Under a leftist frame, you cannot have the American ethic of natural law. Under a leftist frame, you cannot have the primacy of the individual. Under a leftist frame, these very core essential things are gotten away with, and they are replaced with ideas that do not fit into reality. Utopianism doesn't fit into reality because utopianism doesn't account for human nature, doesn't account for how the world actually works. It's a vision of the world. And by trying to manifest their idea of heaven upon earth, leftists justify violence. Indeed, once you remove foundations, you can justify behavior, because the fundamental end is your worldview. The fundamental end is your goal of the world. You guys get it now? So if the fundamental end of all of your behavior is bringing forth the world you want, why have any strong sense of morals? Why appeal to objective reality when everything is within you? This is both the poison and also the downfall of leftism. The bottom line is quite simple. When you can interpret everything and anything under the lens of your own experience and your own opinion, everything becomes permissible and nothing becomes permissible. Everything you want to be permissible is therefore permitted. Everything you hate is therefore stopped in the name of lived experience, in the name of stopping what they call erasure. This is why you hear the words silence is violence, because your silence is complicit in the criticism of me, and the criticism of me, according to the woke leftist frame, is an assault against my being, because I have integrated the very essence of who I am into this one idea, and in doing so, I've killed who I truly am, and I've become this caricature that exists in this cultural landscape to score political points, to get power, to build up power, to inflict my vision of the world upon you. Again, everything becomes permissible, but nothing's permissible. That's the bottom line. This is how leftism just completely falls apart. Because so long as you will embolden people who believe they are things that they are not, so long as you will embolden people who ignore certain norms that are built into reality, so long as you will embolden people to be able to ignore all critique and fact and hide in their little subjective bubble and then inflict their subjective bubble and their understanding of the world upon you through political force, the moment you do that is the moment your entire operation just self-implodes. This is why, even on the left, there's very little unity. Because no matter how much you try, no matter how hard you try, no matter how much you scream, protest, yell, no matter how much you take the individual out of the equation and pay homage to collective groups and then try to tie in moral languages like rights to collective groups, no matter how much you do any of that, facts are still resolute. Reality still remains. And the moment you strike against reality, it hits right back at you. And the results are not pretty. The results are chaos, discord, destruction, and everything else that we have seen coming out of the left over the past few years. My friends, leftism, as opposed to leftists, leftism is our enemy. Leftists are people who are misguided, and by the grace of God and the grace of reason, two tools that I believe we can use in this time can be saved. Some people cannot, but they can be saved or convinced. And it is up to you and I to use our powers as rational human beings to speak truth to this power that we're seeing in our society and to break it with as much force as we can, peacefully, of course, because we're not necessarily concerned about those who are the true believers, the zealots, who have bought into this stuff. We are worried about, however, the proximal bystanders, who may simply be going along to get along, who may simply not actually believe what they're saying, but they believe it for the sake of social capital, who have sacrificed justice and their individualities for the sake of appealing to the masses. Those are the people that are most of America, in my opinion. Those who do not speak up. And those are the people that we can reach by being courageous, by being grounded in truth, and by understanding that leftism, no matter how much you weigh it, no matter which way you cut it, is a fundamentally destructive ideology. My friends, like this video, share this video, comment on this video, subscribe to this channel, comment, tell me how I'm doing, donate to me if you want to keep my mission going. I love you guys so much, and please stay pensive. Bye, guys.